welcome back to another episode of Nothing But the Game with myself, CJ, and Evan. We're coming at you the opening day of 2022 NFL season, and we're going to be traveling to the beaches of LA and to the blizzards of Pittsburgh as we break down some of the action happening so far this week. So, what's up, guys? How's it going? Another episode. Another day in the NFL.
This week of the of football off season is always the most unpredictable, yet it's just so much fun. It's like your own soap opera condensed into like a 1 week time frame.
Yeah, like I'm starting to think I should just start taking this week off, like work wise, like.
Too much information, all right?
Yeah. It is, man. It's the best time. To me personally, it's the best time of year, man. You got, NFL free agency. You have March Madness coming up. Basketball in its truest form. Like, I mean, it is just it's best time of the year. So, yeah, lots of crazy things have happened. Some big signings. Chargers stacked up on some defense. Jaguars are just on a spending frenzy. Like, I don't know. Let's get into it, man. What do you guys' first initial thoughts on the Chargers?
I'm absolutely stoked for it. Being an adoptive Chargers fan, it's a matter. I say stoked because everything that they're adding is just it's almost like no way you can fail, no way you can mess it up. But we have seen this over and over again where this is highly touted and going. So you have to see what they do in the regular season. But this is the most excited I've been in a good while for them.
Yeah, same with me. I mean, with Khalil Mack and J.C. Jackson. And then you have Boza, James, Asante Salmon. I mean, there's so many big names on the defense. And then, with the offense, that's looking like a very solid, complete team right now. So, hands down, way to go, Chargers.
Yeah, so geez, the J.C. Jackson, Derwin James, Sante Samuel Jr., like they have, on paper at least, they have a top-notch secondary now to go with that pass rush, but even before free agency kicked off, I think, something's that's gotten way overlooked because of all the action is retaining Mike Williams, man. Like, Mike Williams and Justin Herbert had a hell of a connection going there last season, and I just find it funny. Denver makes this big trade for Russell Wilson, and the Chargers are like, I'll see you, Russell Wilson, and I'm just gonna stack up everywhere else, man. Like, we're not scared of you at all. I think that's what I love the most about all the moves that the Chargers are making is that they're not scared of anybody at all.
And now they don't have any excuses either. They're ready to bomb, get Mike Williams, Austin Eckler in there, Keenan Allen. There's no reason for them to not be on defense. They're just going to be, to quote the great Talladega Nights, they're going to be coming at you like a spider monkey. They're just going to be hitting you nonstop. They won't care. It's just and so yeah, there's going to be no hold back on it. They have to do something with this year.
Yeah, it's
I'm excited for that whole AFC West right now. Like, that division is going to be a lot of good games this year.
Yeah, I love interdivision like bouts. You know what I mean? And like, so when a division is super super competitive, like the NFC West has been for so many years, I'm so curious on how it all plays out, man. Like, on paper, so like Kansas City will be the king of the West until they are dethroned, right? But it's like, on paper, the Chargers look like they are 10 times better than Kansas City. All right, maybe. All right, 10 times might be a little too much. All right, I'll give them like 5 times better. I mean,
Temper it down a little bit there, you know.
three times
But
better.
let's go with 3 times. I'll take those odds, you know, those a little bit better. But yeah, I mean, it's you're playing up to your competition within the division, and I feel like we're seeing that in multiple divisions. You're not on the playing up side, but maybe some of these feel like it's playing down side a little bit. We've seen some of these free agent signings and things like that, which I'm sure we'll get into some of those other teams. But seeing this being applied within that division obviously is going to be the most fun to watch.
So, God, you just like light bulb went off when you said that. So playing down in divisions, right? Like immediately, first division that comes to my mind is Green Bay in the NFC North playing down to everybody else in that division, like or Green Bay and the Packers playing down to the NFC North, right? Like it's like they got this Superman, and they're not afraid of anybody in the NFC North at all, because
right,
none of them have been good for years. But yeah, that's a really, really interesting.
And that's one of the divisions I was looking at whenever I was seeing it. I was like, man, what is happening here? I mean, another one, with the combo of Pittsburgh taking on Trubisky, and Cleveland's just throwing a whole bunch of, there's who knows what's going on there. Within that division, I feel like there's a whole bunch rolling where it's okay. Well, we're just going to kind of all try to compete with each other, which in reality you're just kind of battling for the middle ground. I'm not a Game of Thrones watcher person, but I feel like there's a good reference I should be making there for it now. Please put something in a chat if there's a good reference I should be making. But yeah, it's just I feel like you're fighting for the middle when you know there's this north and south side or whatever that whole thing is, where something is eventually about to happen. And that's why I've got this feeling with a few of these teams. They're just kind of like, all right, well, we'll play within our division and see what happens.
Yeah, it's man, the AFC West is going to be. I've been seeing tons of jokes, like NFL announces their primetime their primetime schedule this year, and it's AFC versus AFC, or AFC West versus AFC West. I mean, I can't
be able to go wrong with it.
I can't think of a time in the years that I've been following the sport that there's been this many competitive moves made inside a division. I mean, you're talking Chandler Jones signs with Las Vegas today. Denver makes a trade for Wilson, and then they go and get Gregory.
Yeah, obviously I know we've been talking about Chargers with J.C. Jackson, but there is everything in Vegas re-signing Crosby. It's just they're building up everything on the offensive side and reinforcing the defensive side on all those teams. So I mean, we can harp on to this for another 10-15 minutes, I'm sure, but it's going to be a blast to watch.
I mean,
and one of these teams are going to end up floundering somehow. Like it's they're going to find a way to either stub their toe, kick themselves in the butt somehow. I'm interested in seeing, as like I said, an adoptive Chargers fan, that tends to be the Chargers somehow. But I'm really interested to see out of that division who makes the mistake or makes the stumble.
Yeah, it's I don't know if it's going to be a stumble or
just get outpaced by the other teams. They're playing well. They're just the other teams are just doing it better. Not everybody from that division can go. But you had mentioned. Oh, go ahead there.
No, I was gonna say, CJ, what are your thoughts on the division?
like every team in that division made some type of upgrade. So, like, I mean, even the Raiders, they traded for what was his name, Rock Sin, which is, I mean, a cornerback. So I mean, and then the Chiefs got Justin Reed. So everybody somehow improved on either the offense or defense in that division. I think it's just going to be a bloodbath every game out there. So
I mean, are we looking at like super competitive like NFC East division a few years ago where like everyone beat everyone and you're looking at like
They have their own little SEC going on right now, where everybody just
yeah,
kind of beats up on everybody.
right. That's
They just
exactly.
created like this 4-team SEC.
Yep.
that's a really good I like that. The old the AFC SEC. There we go. That's where we're so like I guess biggest question mark in the AFC on top of all these moves that are happening, the only team that really hasn't made any offensive moves are the Raiders. Like the Raiders have not, and I'm thinking like, you know, Zay Jones signs with the Jaguars. Like I'm trying to think of who do they even have at receiver right now.
I mean, they have the ability to sign some people, I'm sure, through the rest of this, but nothing big. I don't think they're in on any of those big names out there.
Yeah.
Whenever we tweeted out the whole Chris Olave runtime, I'm not lying. Like that's, to me, that's probably like what they're looking at as an answer in regards to filling in that wide receiver depth, keeping it cheap. I don't know if that's personally, I don't think that's the answer to get going for this year. And I think a lot of these teams are competing for this year. But yeah, I mean that's just usually what I see them doing is trying to draft that offensive talent.
Yeah.
Very hit and miss, but
I mean, the only people they have, I believe, is Hunter Renfrow and Brian Edwards. So
Yeah, Brian Edwards, he stepped up last
yeah,
season. They did. They have Darren Waller,
yep. Josh Jacobs, if he can stay.
Josh Jacobs reemerged last year as a presence in the run game, especially towards the end of the season.
I mean, I think they'll draft a receiver. I mean, and they got a couple of choices, like the kid from Alabama, who pretty speedy. So I mean, it all depends on what type of receiver they want a possession or not. So they'll have some choices
So
if they don't sign.
to replace Zay Jones was kind of their downfield threat, their speedster last year. So yeah, I think you're hitting the nail on the head with that. That's probably the type of move that they're going to move into. But all right. So speaking of Zay Jones and the going to the Jacksonville Jaguars, have you guys ever seen that movie? Do you guys remember that movie way back in the day? We were kids then. It was called Blank Check.
y'all can educate me on that one.
Yeah,
Oh,
but the kid, like,
Yeah. So,
doesn't, and the guy writes him a check. Yeah.
yeah. So the plot of the story is this guy writes this kid a blank check because he ran over his bike or something like that, right? So this kid fills it out for like $1 million, and he goes on and he buys his
He buys everything.
he buys everything, big house. You know, he's pretty much got like NORAD in his house on his computer system, right? Like all this crazy bizarre stuff, and this is the '90s, so they make it seem like $1 million is just
Gonna last an eternity.
Yeah, and it's just funny, and that's kind of like that's what I think Jacksonville is doing, man. Is they're just out there writing blank checks, man. I mean the Christian Kirk contract just absolutely
Mind blowing.
Mind blowing to the sense of like I'm trying to it was, yeah, 4 years. Excuse me, 4 years, $72 million. I think it has the potential to be up to like 84 million. I mean, there's top notch receivers in the league, that aren't even getting paid close to that. Like Stephon Diggs led the league in receptions and yardage the year prior to last, and Christian Kirk is making $3 million more a year than he is right now. So I mean, this is absolutely going to revolutionize the wide receiver contracts,
I think you might be seeing. I'm going to put my little trader cap on here, and you might be seeing they priced, which is interesting to me because you still have Allen Robinson out there, waiting to find somebody, and he's way more deserving of a contract like that, as opposed to in Christian Kirk. They may see something, love it. I think he's got great potential. He's underperformed, maybe the system, maybe him. Who knows? Be interested to see if how the Jacksonville Jaguars could get that out of him, but. This seems to me almost like you have a bubble that's happening with the wide receivers, and not just saying that on the pricing wise, but specifically because watching film on these guys coming out of college, in college right now, and seeing the pipeline that you have on wide receivers and the talent you have just consistently coming in, I think that a lot of these you're going to start seeing. You may want to start treating wide receivers like you do running backs. You don't really offer these huge contracts. Because maybe not for the wear and tear. Running back wise, it's the wear and tear. After 26 years old, I mean, you may start breaking down all those carries depending on how frequently you're used. On this case, it's the flood of the market. You have so many wide receivers coming in. Yeah, you're gonna have your top echelon of wide receivers that are going to deserve it. Your Devontae Adams. You'll have your freak talents, Tyreek Hill out there, but. I think whenever you're looking in the entire range of like the Amari Coopers, Christian Kirk, we're talking about. If you want to look at, not to mention two Cowboys or former Cowboys, but Michael Gallups, all those type of guys. There's a lot coming into the league, and you could easily just draft these guys, sign them to a rookie contract, be like, okay, well, don't want to re-sign you. I'll just draft another one in the second round next year. And I think that's where we're going to see maybe a correction. Who knows? But you don't ever really see corrections in the NFL. It's usually just goes up and up and up. But smart teams, New England style. I don't think you're going to be seeing them pay big money.
I get what you're saying. That was a really interesting take and really unique, and I like that a lot. That was. So
we'll see. At least we can put it out there. Now we can see if it happens.
Yeah. So I wanted to start so I was doing this thing, and I put it out there on Twitter for us, but it was kind of this breakdown of like the 2017 Philadelphia Eagles, right, and the roster that they were running when they win the Super Bowl. Carson Wentz is on his second year. This is where he tears his ACL. Nick Foles, goes in or whatever, but like. I'm looking at the weapons that they have there that year, and you're talking like Alshon Jeffrey was there, Torrey Smith. Torrey Smith was a speedster. Nelson Aguilar. Then they had the, Zach Ertz, Brian Selleck, Trey Burton was there as a tight end, Jay Ajayi, running back, Wendell Smallwood, right? And then I'm like. And so I'm like starting to like kind of match. It's like I'm playing on my 5-year-old's game where I got to match this square goes into this hole type thing, right? And I'm like, they are absolutely rebuilding that roster with with these signings, right? I mean, you look at like combine stats. So Nelson Aguilar, he ran I think it was like a 4.47 or a 4.44, and then you look at Zay Jones. Zay Jones ran 4.43 5. You know what I mean? Like all their combine
Yeah.
stats and receive, they're all very very similar to each other. Zay Jones, they bring Zay Jones in as their speedster, much like Torrey Smith was. Christian Kirk is this great route running possession receiver. It's your Nelson Aguilar. They have Laviscus Chenault too, big physical receiver. That's Alshon Jeffrey. Then they signed Evan Ingram. Not to mention they have James Robinson and Travis Etienne, who we don't know anything about yet. In terms of and then
Dude, don't they still have Marvin Jones too? Or is that
they still have Marvin Jones as
Marvin?
well.
Yeah.
So now you have this really deep.
They often forgot about.
And
he was their
and
most
they
productive. He was their most productive receiver last year.
Yeah.
And they beat up the O line too. So
Brandon Sheriff comes in. Like, they signed somebody else too. Another.
Tyler Staley.
And then they go and they improve. They signed Darius Williams to a 3-year, $30 million contract.
Yeah.
Oh man,
they're kind of shoring up everything all around there with on the defensive side too. And shoot, to add up what they have in the draft coming in, I mean,
number 1 pick.
they don't have to go out and trade that draft capital. They can utilize it for what this draft is. Utilize it on they went out and got all their skill position guys through the free agency, and now they can just shore it up because this is a much deeper draft. Whenever you're looking outside of those sexy skill positions, wide receivers, quarterbacks, running backs. When it comes to defensive line, O-line type stuff, even and corners, this is a draft to throw that in there.
Yeah.
Yep. So I'm curious what they're going to do with their pick.
Me too. Yeah, and now we were kind of talking about this, pre-show here today. So now you look at the AFC South, and there could be a whole changing of the guard there, because the Colts have done nothing really so far this free agency. I know it's essentially the first day of free agency, but going into it, they had the largest cap space available.
Yep.
They trade Carson Wentz right before. To me, not that Carson Wentz is like a stud or anything like that, but like now you have this big question mark surrounding your quarterback, and you're gonna. That is. You don't have a selling point at all. You don't have a selling point at all. Like you look like a franchise. You look like a team that is really, really confused on what your future looks like. And we've talked about this in previous shows. There's that threshold, right, of being success and maximizing the talent on your team. And Jonathan Taylor's, he's going to be up for extension next year. Darius Leonard, I don't know what the status on his contract is, but like, I don't know. Michael Pittman's going on. Michael Pittman Jr. is going on his 3rd year. Like, if your plan is to draft a quarterback this year, there's not that many prospects. And if your plan is to draft,
you better hold on to that. You better hold on to that salary cap that you have, because you maybe have to pay all those guys if you want to keep them.
Right. And maybe that is what their plan is, but then I don't see them being super competitive this year.
Yeah.
They'll be competitive. They were always competitive last year. They were competitive last year, but when it came down to winning games that they needed to win, they obviously couldn't, which kept them out of the playoffs, right? And then you have Tennessee, who is unloading everything, really. And so maybe their little run at it is coming to an end. So now, I'm not saying that I'm not putting all my I'm not putting everything on black here. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying that Jacksonville is going to just absolutely stomp through the South, but like in terms of most complete team, yeah, they kind of rose the bar a little bit. Like they're starting to look like a really complete team with all these signings, and you have big question marks surrounding the rest of the teams in the AFC South. So
Yeah, you have that whole. I mean, thing I mentioned earlier, playing down in your within your division. With Jacksonville's, it's almost like they're trying to be a surprise. Kind of go as like, hey, we're going to take everybody who's distracted, with Deshaun Watson in Houston, and the Colts try to figure out what's going, what all's happening, what's going on with them. Period. Tennessee having just a massive letdown after the season that they had and the expectations. I think they're reevaluating what they've got going on. I think a lot of times with the Colts, it's almost kind of like, probably a terrible analogy, but you're getting ready to play a game of Risk. So you're getting all your guys and you're mapping everything out. And I think Colts had this master plan, and just somebody kind of came in and put like one or two pieces in the way, and they're like, what are we doing now? We're all freaking out, be like, all right, I gotta start placing things everywhere else because I don't know what just happened. They didn't. It's right now until we see what they do through free agency, and there may be a bigger master plan. It does seem like they're almost in. We had Plan A, and Plan A was guaranteed, and we had everything on black, like you said. That's what we have. I'm curious as to what full Plan A was, but.
In terms of risk, I always liked starting in Australia. I would start in Australia. I'd have the Aussies invade Asia, because then you get the most you'd get the most reinforcements if you invaded Asia.
And right now, Jacksonville's like Australia. They're just slowly but surely building up those forces, and they're about to just take that one-way trip up to Asia.
Yeah.
Man. And really, I mean, it's an interesting division to look at. Obviously, as we all learned, just for example, Redskins defense last year, everything on paper is on paper until you actually put it into action. So there'll be a lot of fun to see.
Yeah, I'm curious to see. I'm just really curious to see how it all plays out, man. It's going to be, and this is all banking on sophomore improvements here by Trevor Lawrence, right? So,
yeah,
he is your,
and I feel like we could see a massive, huge turn for two of the lower end teams. And we're talking about the Jacksonville, Trevor Lawrence make that bump, and then I know we've all. Not all, but have this little bandwagon going. But see what Detroit's doing. I know we talked about Packers in their division and maybe playing down to it, and Chicago and Minnesota just seeming like they're just treading the water. They haven't been doing much, splash wise. Detroit is freaking exciting to me.
Oh man, I'm so excited for Detroit and
to add that GJ chart, just that little bit of a taste into, like we were talking about, like you were saying, CJ, earlier, just retaining what they do have, that continuity, and what they're going to be able to do in the draft as well. I know I kind of side away from the Jaguar talk,
I mean,
going between two teams that were in that lower end, that kind of like, what's going on, what's happening here.
We got an hour for the show, man. So we talk about all sorts of things. I mean, I think continuity and retaining your own is definitely huge, especially for teams that haven't thrived throughout the years. You got to do that. You got to make people want to come to you, and you do that by keeping your own and proving that people want to stay here. And yeah, I'm really excited for Detroit. And I think Detroit is really going to shock a few people this season. I really do. But so moving up north here a little bit to Pittsburgh and really just the whole AFC North. It's pretty much your typical. Right now, it's looking like it's going to be your typical kind of AFC North thing, where I think. We'll talk about Mitch first, all right? We'll talk about Mitch first. I don't want to get off topic. I was gonna start rambling about the Browns, and I don't want to do that. Not yet. I'll save that for like the last 10 minutes of the show. Yeah. So, first thoughts on Trubisky. What do you guys think?
Man. All right, so I'm a Mitchell Trubisky fan. Obviously, he's from Carolina. But the more I read into it, I don't think this is a winning situation for him because from what I was been reading about it, his release time is like 2 seconds slower than Ben Roethlisberger, and you already seen how many times he got sacked last year. And they really hasn't. I mean, they signed a couple guys for the offensive line, but I don't think it's much improved. So, I mean, in my heart, I want him to improve and win, but I just don't see it happening. At least not this year.
Did we lose Evan?
Oh yeah, he's got the. Yo,
dude, I can't wait for him to see this. I can't wait for Evan to rewatch this because, like, oh man.
I think my internet knew exactly my thoughts on Trubisky, and they tuned me out. It was doing me a favor.
When you get a chance to rewatch the show tonight, scroll to about the 33 minute mark, all right?
Oh no.
I mean, the face
you leave me a good freeze face.
Oh, dude, the face that you're making is about to become the face of our podcast, man. Like, I mean, this is just
Oh.
That is like profile picture worthy. Oh man. So I think the biggest question, I mean, we've kind of hit on this, you know, building up to the start of free agency here, and is quarterback really the issue in Pittsburgh? I mean, I think the receiving core is. I don't think the receiving core is hitting the level of production that it should be.
And you could say.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, one, the O-line absolutely is going to contribute to that. But you could say that the receiver issue could also be the whole quarterback connection. Personally, watching Roethlisberger, I thought he was just playing, just out there. He knew this was the last season. I didn't see a whole lot. You know, he still has that competitive side. He's a professional football player. But I wasn't seeing anything too fired up. And I think you saw that in the receivers where they didn't have any form of passion for it because the leader wasn't having any passion for it.
That's true. On the flip side of this, like this discussion, I mean, that could be, you know, Mitchell Trubisky's on this, you know, he took this year off. He you know, took a step back, and maybe he does have some fire and some drive in him, and maybe this will amp up everything. I mean, because, you know, Deontay Johnson and Chase Claypool, like, you know, they are super talented, and it's unfortunate that they fall in this category, at least in my opinion, this category of, you know, not productive receivers. You know, lots of drops, misreading coverages, wrong route running. Like, I mean, you name it, and you're right. That very well could have been a reflection of the leadership, and maybe they need to. Maybe they all need to just you know, good revamping there. Let's give it another shot. I think the O-line is extremely interesting. I mean, I brought up Trubisky's, his last year in Chicago, so this is the last games that he started. He's 16-8 for touchdowns. He was sacked 18 times. He had only started 9 games that year. This is the year that they go to the playoffs, the double doink. This is pretty much I think this was the downfall of the Matt Nagy era, right? But I'm looking at some of his weapons that he had. Allen Robinson, Anthony Miller, Darnell Mooney, David Montgomery. I mean,
those are all, honestly, Darnell Mooney's rising up. He's going to be outstanding. Robinson, we know what he is.
Right.
Anthony Miller, he's a 3.
Yeah.
He's a 3 guy wherever he goes. And Montgomery was out of college known as a pass catching back, also tenacious runner. I think where he's
Najee Harris.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now I wouldn't put, obviously Allen Robinson out of all that, is way better on that talent side. But I think you've got a 3-headed potential over there in Pittsburgh with Johnson, Claypool, and the third one to me is Freiermuth. They're tight ends.
Yes.
He's going to be outstanding. And there, maybe going back to the whole character, leadership, energy, whatever you want to put it, Trubisky does have that. Like he has the energy, the competitiveness. I feel like he maybe always has that feeling that he's got to prove something. He'll at least bring that. As much as, if I don't care for what he does have, maybe he can bring that fire and that competitiveness to a team that should be doing way better than they are.
Right. I mean,
if they can shore up that O-line as well.
If Mike Tomlin has a winning season this year, he'd be the most winningest coach in NFL history. That's a quick little note. I saw it on Twitter sometime.
Dolphins just coming in.
Oh wow.
Dolphins signing Raheem Mostert.
Breaking news.
Nothing else like crazy outstanding, but coach system.
That helps out though.
It does. I mean, obviously, Mike McDaniel, he's bringing that whole, we talk about. You just mentioned it, 3-headed monster, right? But that's what San Francisco was for so many years. Was no matter what, you could plug and play any kind of running back. So now looking at the depth of that run back, like that backfield, right? That's Myles Gaskin. Does he slide all the way down to the bottom then? With that signing?
You never know. One injury away, and he's the next Elijah Mitchell out of nowhere. So
right.
It's with that scheme and offense. I mean, and we're thanks for updated news. It puts us to a new pivot point here. But Tua's, to me, a slightly more athletic Jimmy. It really is. I mean, left-handed, accurate, not going to go out and bomb and win you the game. I don't think, but he's going to manage. We could be seeing a little East Coast version of the West Coast.
Oh, nice. Good take there. Waddle becomes your Debo. They got Mike Gesicki. They got Mike Gesicki. That's your George Kittle. I mean, you're right. Absolutely. I love that. You're seeing a little bit of I don't even how to phrase that again. Say that again. A little bit of
the West Coast on the East Coast.
A little bit of the West Coast on the East Coast. That is a great take, man. That's an interesting. I wanted to move up north a little bit further than Pittsburgh and talk about the big signing today. Von Miller to the Bills.
Woo.
And so the Bills signed pretty much like right as free agency broke there. Von Miller to a big 6-year, $120 million. I don't think the official details are out yet on the contract. But then they also signed O.J. Howard, who to me, like what this says and what Ken Dorsey and the is the new offense coordinator, like with Dawson Knox emerging last year, like I'm expecting a big push for 12 personnel. You know, 2 tight end sets for those who don't know, like what 12 personnel. Like, so 12 personnel would be opens up the door for a lot of play action. You're gonna get Josh Allen outside the pocket a lot. You're gonna get probably play action opens up the run game. There's always been this battle, right? The run game opens up play action. Well, I think it's a vice versa. I mean, as much as the run game opens up play action in the passing game, I think play action in the passing game can also open up the run game just as much, right? Because all you're doing is moving those safeties wherever you want at that point. So, but yeah, I think you might see the Bills kind of dial back on this explosive offense and try to run the ball more and really manage the clock more. And their scoring will probably go down, but I think efficiency wise, like I think their efficiency is going to rise, and you're just going to be like nobody can stop these guys because they're going to have an answer for everything. I mean, I think adding another athletic tight end across from Dawson Knox is exactly what that offense needed. And then in terms of defense, they were one of the best teams in pressure on the quarterback last year, but they were one of the low end teams on sacks. So it's like, they could get there, but they weren't following through with it. And I think whatever juice Von Miller has left in him, I think the Bills are going to exploit that to the best of their advantage there. So, thoughts?
I think Von Miller has gone from he's got the league figured out, especially with all this free agency stuff. Man, just find your times and just jump to the best teams, which in reality we're seeing a lot of the other guys do as well. Hey, I'm in my early 30s, late 30s, whatever you're seeing. Where can I go that I can win a championship while also contributing? So You don't want to sit on the bench. You don't want to be that guy that's just kind of like riding their way there. And he's a smart dude, and he's proven it here with this move out to Buffalo. Because this, to me, I've liked Buffalo to win it last year. We know how that went. I love them to win it this year, and this just adds on to. It's just an outstanding roster, and I think it's a perfect fit, character and everything.
Yeah. So to your point about guys moving, for the money and championship wise, I was really curious. To me, it raised the question of like Chandler Jones going to Vegas, because I mean it's a big contract. It's $17 million a year. I think it was a 2-year deal, 17 mil. Or 1 year, 17 mil, something like. So like, it's a big contract for him. He's 32. He's been there. He's had the big payday from Arizona. He's had the championships with New England. I don't understand the move to Vegas. I don't, because if we're talking about competitive teams, I think Vegas is the least competitive team in that division, let alone playoff teams last year. I thought they were the least competitive in AFC side. So I don't know. I it is to each your own, I guess. Like whatever he wanted to do, he could do it. So
I think he's just jumping from last year's most competitive conference, with having 3 playoff teams, to, hey, this one's going to be the next most competitive conference.
Right.
Let me go jump over to that one. I mean, he's going to have their, you never know what each person's thinking, but they're definitely be asking him to do what he likes to do and just go after that QB. I mean, a lot of them are going to have to, so maybe
Yeah.
Vegas has got some allure to it.
What are
But
some of your guys' other interesting moves? CJ, what's an interesting move for you, man?
well, you didn't talk about the other signing for the Bills, Tim Settle, which I thought was pretty good too. Where he can help out that run game for you guys. So
The run defense. Yeah, I mean they. Yeah, I think Tim Settle is coming from a really crowded defensive line in
yeah,
Washington, and I think it very well could be the steal of the entire free agency. It's just my opinion. Not that I'm a homer or anything like that, and.
but I would say
By no means.
my other signing is the Bengals was able to get Alex Kappa, I believe that's how you pronounce it. The guy from Tampa Bay
Yeah.
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
help out that O line, man. So I
that's
thought
what-
that was a big pickup for them.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of offensive linemen that are still available, Teron Armstead's still out there as well. He hasn't signed anybody, so if Cincy can do that, I mean, that's a huge upgrade from what they went to the Super Bowl with last year. And I mean, we know in terms of where they're at, asset wise and youth wise, like, pardon me, excuse me. You have plenty of youth and talent there already, so it's not like they're not going anywhere they're not going away anytime soon. So invest in that, build up that offensive line. Like you said, it's a deep offensive line in the draft too. Like they're probably going to draft and throw some of their assets towards that. Like, yeah, so that's it's really interesting. I can't wait to see where he goes and if that's where he ends up. What about you, Evan? Any other interesting signings?
Man, so I casually mentioned it. I really do love that DJ Chark move for Detroit. But one that we haven't touched on, and we're once again sticking in the AFC West. As much as it was a pain to see how Randy Gregory separated, I really do think. I mean, he's going to be a big game changer for them. As a Cowboy fan, I was hoping we could possibly then snag Von Miller instead, but now it's looking a little bleak on that line. Who knows what they'll be able to pull out? But for Denver, Randy Gregory is, if he can stay on the field, even if he can stay on the field for 80% of the year, like that's going to be a massive one for them. To go, why am I drawing a blank? Chubb, what's his first name at Denver as well?
Bradley.
Yeah,
Bradley
on the other side, if you can get both those guys, I think that's an under the radar. Yeah, it's probably on the news and everything of the way Randy Gregory left, but under the radar talent wise, they're putting together something pretty awesome, especially with Surtain and the corners that they have. They can get some more of those four man rush, so they're not having to put out those weird blitzes and expose themselves to these all skilled quarterbacks.
I think another interesting move. I'm sorry, I was just double checking. Marcus Williams to the Ravens. Yeah. So
and they needed that.
Yeah, their secondary was they have talent there, but their safeties and their secondary was rough last year, and this might be exactly what they need to shore that up. And they're not a team that the Ravens aren't a team that go out and make a ton of moves. They love drafting and developing their guys, and they also just made one earlier today. CJ, what was his name? I'm drawing a blank.
Darius Smith.
Oh, Zadarius Smith?
Yeah,
Zadarius
4
Smith.
years.
Yeah.
Which I thought was a big pickup for them. He's going to thrive in that system, so.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? You might have this super competitive division there in the AFC North as well. Oh, look at 10 minutes. I can talk about the Browns now, right?
Well, I thought that was
Wait
a nice
for
little
this
segue in there. Yes, this ultra competitive division. Let me hear your thoughts there.
Oh man, I can't. we sit here when we did our rankings, our team rankings, right? We were like, what's Houston doing? What's Jacksonville doing? Yeah, like, I mean, there's still Houston is not even in discussion right now for the AFC South. But like, seriously, what are the Browns doing? I don't understand the trade for Amari Cooper. I understand the trade for Amari Cooper from Dallas's point of view. I do not understand it for the Browns' point of view. You're giving up a 6th-round pick. Well, I think it was a 6th-round pick for
Fifth.
A fifth and a
a
sixth.
5th and a 6th for Amari Cooper. You get Amari Cooper off Dallas's books.
Cap space.
Then you turn around, you release Jarvis Landry. You franchise tag Njoku.
Joke.
You release Austin Hooper today.
Yep.
I mean,
And
I'm
then
not-
you start flirting with the hottest kid in school right now, or
Deshaun
whatever.
Watson.
With
right.
Deshaun Watson.
And I
Yeah.
just can't wrap my head around it at all, man. I really can't. I don't even know. I mean, like, Njoku. The franchising Njoku is just. I was just like, I'm so just caught off guard by it because you signed Austin Hooper 2 years ago, and at the time it was a big contract for a tight end, and you could have extended Njoku last year and got Hooper off your books last year. And Njoku, to me, it always been more productive than Hooper was. Like, I don't know. I don't know what that franchise is doing, man. And just when you think they're making strides forward by making big trades for Odell and you know, and they got this great run game, and Baker looked like he was, you know, gonna start turning it around. Like, I mean, I thought Baker, you know, year 2 was good, and then it just went downhill from there. Like, and now, like you said, flirting with the hottest kid in school. Like,
Yeah.
we didn't even talk about that. I mean, I tweeted it out when the news broke, but like, I think Deshaun Watson to Carolina is the most attractive move out there. Like, to me, it makes most sense for him and for them, right? They signed.
Yeah, but
Go ahead. I'm sorry. I'm on a rant. I
no,
apologize.
no, you're good. I was just curious with the Deshaun Watson thing, being the fact that he does have kind of, you know, Houston's accepted all the trade offers, and now the ball's in his court. And
Yeah.
it's like he's courting these teams and figuring out what he wants.
I mean,
But
in my opinion, the teams that have made offers so far, so it's been Atlanta, Carolina,
Saints.
the Saints, and Cleveland now. Cleveland's in the mix. Carolina is the most complete team in terms of. I mean, the only thing that I can see that's stopping is that I imagine that Houston is trying to offload CMC, and nobody wants to take that contract because of his injury history. And that is the only thing that I can see that is like, and I guarantee you, if I'm a fly on the wall in that conference room right now, this is what's happening is Deshaun Watson's like, I want to go there. That's where I want to go. And Carolina or in Houston's probably like, damn, of all the places, of all the teams that he wanted to go to, it had to be them, right? Because they just signed Deonta Foreman, and they have Chuba Hubbard, who stepped up big time as the number one back there. So it's like they can afford to let CMC go. And yeah, man, I don't know. Like, I can't wait for the news to break on where he goes, and I'm so curious of what happens because, my honest opinion, if he goes to Cleveland, I mean, that's like career suicide. And so,
and there's so many other teams that are falling on this that we've talked about, or players. So, you know, like Teron Armstead hasn't done anything. Wondering if he's going to wait for that whole process to play out. Where if he goes there, you know, judging, because if he goes there, man, they jump up a little bit on the competitive side. because they do have that defense. Yeah, they lost Marcus Williams, but their defense was the thing that held them together last year. But then if he goes to Cleveland or Atlanta, um, what are the maybe the Colts might try to make a break for one of those two quarterbacks that have now been displaced between Baker or Matt Ryan. There's a lot of dominoes that could fall based off of this whole Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, I mean, so the Matt Ryan thing, that's a great point right there. So there was news that broke earlier today that Atlanta has informed Matt Ryan that they are in discussion with Houston about making the trade, and they've been communicating with him about it. So yeah, I wonder if the Matt Ryan team is like, hey, I want to go here then to Indy, and he would be the perfect bridge quarterback for them for maybe a year or two for them to draft somebody next year out of that more deeper quarterback class.
Stack next year. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah,
so much more potential.
It's gonna be I love this time of year. We talked about it. We talked about it at the beginning of the show, but man, I love this time of year.
The amount of hypotheticals and strategies and what I would do and couch coaching where you're like, oh man, what are they doing with this? If I was GM, it just makes it so much fun because there are so many variables and nobody really knows. But then you can always apply the hindsight bias, and you're just it is so much fun, especially whenever you can see people like us and listeners, everybody who's out there just trying to look at this stuff. You're scouting things and how people who get paid millions to do it sometimes can't even see the most obvious.
Yeah. So, but I mean that's gonna do it for today's for this week's episode. I don't know, great show, guys, and stay tuned as more news breaks here throughout the week. So, as always, thanks for checking us out and listening to Nothing But the Game.